Ecosystems. In this lesson, we're talking about ecosystems, abiotic versus biotic, population, community, ecosystem recycling, describing ecosystem sustainability, and then human impacts. Ecosystems. An ecosystem is all the living organisms that share a region and interact with each other and their non-living environment. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and list all the living and non-living things in this ecosystem. There's going to be a close-up on the next slide. So pause the video and list all the living and non-living components of this ecosystem. So in regards to living components, we're going to have this plant here. We're going to have these grasses over here, these shrubs and bushes here, and that's about it. There's not a ton of living things in this ecosystem that we can see. Now, there will be things we can't see, certain animals, microorganisms that are going to be in the soil that would also be part of the living components. The non-living components would be things like the boulders, the air, this ground here. Again, not the living components within the ground or the rock, but the non-living components. Examples of ecosystems. Rainforests are an excellent example of ecosystems, and they're very diverse, rich ecosystems that have many different species living in a very concentrated area. In swamps, you're going to have your non-living water mixing with your living things like trees and all the animals that live in that, again, a very rich ecosystem. And the same thing with coral reefs. You're going to have your living and your non-living components all in a given area, which make up our ecosystem. Ecosystems are made of both organic, like I was just saying, and non-organic, non-living, never-living components. The organic components are called biotic factors, and the non-organic components are called abiotic factors. And the important thing to keep in mind is that organic is going to be something that's either living or once living. So a dead log is still organic matter. Non-organic is going to be our abiotic components, and they're going to be the things that are never living. So things like wind, rocks, etc. These things were never living. This bridge right here is a biotic component of this ecosystem. It was a once living component. So let's think about your local park. It can be any park, but generally the park that's closest to you. Write down at least 5 biotic and abiotic factors that you would find in that park. So I'd like you to pause the video and do that. So biotic factors could be the living animals that are in that area, the grass, the trees, maybe if you have a wooden park bench. These things are all going to be the biotic factors, the living or once living components. The abiotic factors are going to be the metal swing set, maybe a metal bench, the pavement going through the park, the air around, the dirt, etc. The things that were never living. Now again, I'd like you to pause the video and label the following as either biotic or abiotic. So our algae is a living thing. It's like a plant. So that's going to be our biotic. Dirt is abiotic. The sun is abiotic. Grass, biotic. Pollen are seeds. That's going to be biotic. And wind, air, abiotic. Individual organisms from many species share an ecosystem. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and list as many as you can from the picture below. Now in this exercise, there's going to be many, many answers. So I'm just going to point out a few. You're going to have your turtle, your log, right? These are all living things. And then you got these guys in the water, the dragonfly, the reeds. All these things were living things that share this ecosystem. Now within this ecosystem, these living things are going to interact with their non-living components. Some non-living components could be like the water, the air, these rocks down here, and they're all going to mix with the living components to make up the ecosystem. Now before we go into ecosystems further, we need to go over a few terms. Population. Together, all the individuals of a single species, that's going to be key, in a particular area make up a population. So this would be a population of humans. They're all humans gathered in a given area. In a community, it's going to have all the individuals from all the populations in that given area. So you can have your giraffes, your lions, your wildebeests, etc. All the different populations in a given area. That's going to be the community. And that ecosystem is going to be the term given to a community, so all the different populations, and its interactions with the abiotic or never living components. And that's what we were talking about before. So you're going to have your community, which are going to be all your living things, mixing with your non-living things like your water and your air, and all of that together is going to make up our ecosystem. Ecosystem recycling. The sun powers life in an ecosystem. Producers convert the energy from the sun and transfer it to the consumers. Producers are going to be things like our green plants. Energy is moved throughout the ecosystem through the feeding relationships, and that's going to be in regards to our food webs. The remains are broken down by our decomposers, which release those nutrients and minerals back into the soil to be picked up and used by other organisms. Describing ecosystems. Ecosystems can be described by a specific set of biotic and abiotic features. For example, the organisms that live there, the temperature range, and precipitation. Is there a lot of rain or snow in that particular given area? Sustainability. The ability to maintain an ecological balance is sustainability. Most ecosystems are sustainable. This means that they maintain a relatively constant set of characteristics over a long period of time. So for example, the temperature, precipitation, animal, plant life, etc. all stays pretty constant over a long period of time. Human actions, however, can often disrupt the biotic and abiotic factors of an ecosystem. So doing things like polluting, cutting down trees, building cities. These are all things that are going to disrupt the sustainability of the previously existing ecosystem. The actions of humans can make previously sustainable ecosystems unsustainable. So, for example, oil spills greatly disrupt the previously stable ecosystem. The animals that live there, the plants that live there, can't sustain themselves any longer. They're either going to die, forced out, or need to adapt to a changing environment. Most ecosystems are naturally created. Other ecosystems are created and maintained by humans. So, for example, parks, farms, etc. These things are all made by humans. These types of ecosystems are usually not sustainable, as they require constant management. Think about what would happen if you left a park for 3 years and came back. Would it look the same? What would be different? So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and think about a park, this your everyday given park, and think about what would change in 3 years if that park was not maintained. And I want you to answer these two questions. Would it look the same? And what would be different? So what comes to my mind is that the grass would get much longer. You think a lot of the parts might get rusted, and then they might be more susceptible to the environmental conditions and might topple over. The area might be infested with animals. You think animals don't usually come to an area because there's a lot of humans, but with humans gone, there could be a lot of animals coming into that given area. That's a rabbit, by the way. It's really interesting to think about how humans impact sustainability of natural and non-natural environments, and what we should be doing as a species to help protect our natural ecosystems. Now that we've finished our lesson, you should take a few minutes to think about how you could make a positive impact on the ecosystems near you. And that concludes our lesson on ecosystems.